And we are back with our favorite guest, Dr. Hamed Mizani. And we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the world today as it relates to healthcare. So, Dr. Mizani, have you been looking at television?
A lot.
So, have you seen what's been going on in the George Floyd case?
Yes. This morning, actually, I was looking at it before I came to the show, and I was thinking, what would I have done if this was my own son, brother, cousin, neighbor? What is the right answer? It is difficult to come up with the right answer. But I'll tell you something else. We are going through a very difficult and unprecedented times. And what do I mean with that? We have never had people wanting to voice, their concerns and dislikes about, the policies of or actions of some, not all, some law enforcement folks, which led to a death that did not have to happen. But we've never had that happen during a world pandemic in our generation.
No, we haven't.
Right. I mean, you had the 1918 flu, the last pandemic that affected the United States. But you've never had what's happening now with the sort of uprise, you want to call it, or whatever, the protests. But during a world pandemic where we've been talking about social distancing in a sense of basically that what it means is just don't get too close to people. 6 feet, 12 feet, masks, no masks, hand sanitizer. Now, and we've done that very well because, as you know, many cities and states that followed that after seeing what's happening in New York City's and hotspots, they've done pretty good, I would say so far. But now the states are opening up and, people have to go back to work and,
right.
Life needs to go on. We have to yet to see what the consequences of those are. But we have never had this type of protest during a scenario of wartime that the person who you're next to could have it and the one next to could have it and don't know they have it, and you take it home. And you have elderly parents, and you have other family members that have diabetes, high blood pressure, kidney disease, cancer, and now you just killed them.
Yeah.
So what started as a gesture of wanting to make the world and the country and the leaders aware of the pain and suffering just killed your brother or sister. By your own hands.
Made them very sick, or at the minimum, made them really
very sick. How would you deal with that? It's something to sort of wait and see over the next few weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks. And I believe this perhaps will continue the way it's looking like. So I thought, what would I do if this was happening to me? And if it's happened to your immediate family, there's a lot of emotions involved. I don't have an answer for that. But if it's someone out there and sees these, these protests, riots on TV and goes out there and now causes a violent act, which burns down somebody else's business, who they've worked for all their life.
And we saw a lot of that. We saw a lot of people sad.
You did. And
over their businesses.
Well, those businesses have people that work in it.
Yeah.
Brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
I mean, they're working in it. The next morning, there's no work. In an era or time that you have 40 million people unemployed, and now you cause another action that perhaps burn down a business that was working. It is not going in the right direction. So I really believe it's time, as you and I talked about it earlier, there needs to be a national
policy change.
Absolutely.
This is, I fully understand being upset over what happened to George Floyd. There aren't words for what I felt when I saw it, when I saw him calling for his mother in his last moments of his life. Peaceful protests, that is your right as an American. You can protest peacefully as often as you wish, and wherever you wish. But all of the peaceful protests that we can do not make a difference if there is not policy change. There has to be policy change that accompanies the peaceful protest. Just like in the 1960s when Martin Luther King Jr. was organizing peaceful protests. And let's talk about that because those protests were organized. So they met before the protest. They decided what's going to be every possible outcome. They knew dogs could be turned on them. They knew fire hoses would be turned on them. They knew, they decided, are we going to have children present? Will we have children there? And what will that mean for those children and what they're going to see and what they're going to experience? And how are we going to react when those hoses come, when the fire hoses are turned on us, when the dogs are unleashed on us? How are we to react? They knew what they were going to do and how they were going to react. But they also knew that they that they had a policy change in mind, what it was. They had it defined, and that's what we have to do now.
No, I agree with you 100%. I think it's what's interesting is that we always thought that our country could be afflicted with external war or terrorisms or trade wars. We had never thought about a microorganism that would just come
and knock us down like this.
Change our lives in ways that we never thought of. For example, you go in an elevator and you worry about what's the other person next to you. Is it the coughing or the sneezing? How they look? Or you don't want to shake hands? Are you kidding me? I mean, like shaking hands was like the 101 proper, sort of. You would teach your children to shake hands so they would be polite enough. Or that you want to even talk to a person and you don't want to be too close. So in other words, our society, our behavior has changed from the microorganisms. So there are a lot of things in life that we never prepared for.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously this awful incident happens with Mr. Floyd. And how do we respond to that? I think it is time for the leaders to step in and make this completely apolitical, meaning not political. It's not a Republican or Democratic thing.
That's
it is
right.
a human thing, and is a human thing for our species survival. This is worldwide, right?
Exactly.
And sort of, as you said very earlier on, policy change in a sense of doesn't matter what color you are, you're white, blue, yellow, red, you're a human being. You shouldn't
die with someone's knee on your neck.
I'll tell you something funny. One of my most cherished movies is called Independence Day. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
I have seen Independence Day.
I'm into sci-fi kind of things, and I love to see movies but essentially unifying human race against some bad aliens. And then so the president gives a speech that I have memorized because it's so unifying against something that you've never seen or faced, and very much could be a virus. That never before in mankind history had we fight something that is worldwide. It's always regional conflict, north, south, west, east, Africa, Europe, Asia, U.S. But a worldwide unifying cause is perhaps something to look forward to as human, unifying and forget about our differences, but rather knowing our similarities, who we are. and that hopefully we can create a world that our children and their children can live in and be proud of what we've done. So I think it's time, whether we want it or not, whether it's hard or easy, this is the time that we have to unify and
get the policy correct so that every American can walk down the street, drive a nice car, do whatever it is that they want to do as an American, and not face any repercussion because their skin tone happens to have a little more melanin than the next guy's.
I can tell you, America is a beacon of hope. I don't say that because I was born here. I say that because I choose to be here and make America home. And I'm so proud of this country for what it is, for its people. And everyone across the world that has the capability of coming to make it, a better life for them, their children want to come here because this country has been the beacon of hope, and it will be.
And I pray that Mr. Floyd's life will be cherished, that what has happened here, that we will make a difference and a change because of him having lost his life in such a brutal manner, that the rest of us will, instead of remaining silent and complicit in his demise, that we will join together and lift our voices and say, we will make this policy change. We will not rest until the policy change is made. You've been listening to On the Record with Tiffany.